Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Clelia and we're going to replicate this very simple card that I made during a live stream the other day. This is going to be a very simple project and you will see me recreate this in just a few simple steps. We are starting to recreate this beautiful background. We are going to need a white sheet of paper, our water stencil, and I'm using a grape mat so that I will not have to stick the paper to the table with a piece of washi tape. This will just be stable as it is. I'm using a couple of distress inks. These are some of my favorite blues, but any blues that you're going to use, that you will be choosing, will be okay. No matter what, distress colors, inks, or oxides will blend in together beautifully. So let's just start with a very light blending. This is a blending tool by Flower. You see these bristles will let you create a very light and soft color background. Then we're going to be adding a few more colors with a little bit more intense blending. So let's start with this. Let's start with Salvaged Patina. This is a very light color and I'm just using it to create a real soft base. You see the stencil is not really clean and it's okay because I will be dragging some of the color that is already on it onto my paper. And this will actually make it look a lot more interesting. I just need this to be very light and soft. So let me fix it. Okay. And then we're adding more color and depth with the darker colors. This will be enough for my base, and then I'm switching to a darker color, which is Mermaid Lagoon, a really warm and intense blue that I particularly like. Okay. And I will be adding this very dark color, not everywhere, but I'm choosing some spots that will be, of course, darker than the others to create some differences and shades in the pattern. It's very easy to do, very quick, and very relaxing. You see? I'm also leaving some brighter spots. You know, these brighter spots with some white, major white in it, will be lights, will be very lighted. You will see there will be like spots of light, and that will bring much more interest into our color shade. We're using then prize ribbon, and I'm being very careful with this as I'm going just in some of the corners of the shades. I don't want to cover everything with this because this is really much darker and I still want it to be light but intense. Does that make any sense to you? It does to me, so I hope it does make sense to you too. Okay. And we are here. I will be now adding the darker color. I will be using this brush, but then I will probably be adding a little bit of extra ink with another kind of blending tool. Let me show you. Let's go with, this is Chipped Sapphire, and let's go. If the result is fine and I like it, I will probably just top it. But if I want to add a little extra ink, I'm going to have to use another kind of brush because these blending tools bring in the color in a very smooth and delicate way. If I want to add some more color, I will need to use a brush like this. And work on it. You see, maybe I want to add a little extra dark here and maybe a little bit here. And why not? here. You know how dramatic it brings it out? It is very dramatic because the contrast between the chipped sapphire and the salvaged patina that you can no longer see here, but it's hidden in the lighter spots. And you know, the little white and lighter spots that we left, they bring in so much interest into this background. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The next thing we need to do is to cut out the portion of the pattern that we need to place into the card. I will just cut it now because I need to heat emboss it. And I'm afraid that if I die cut it through my machine after I have it embossed, it will probably crack and the effect will not be what I want. So we'll just have to cut it now. We are going to use this beautiful slim line by La Coppia Creativa. This is a wavy slim line die set. And we're both going to use the base as the base of the card. We're going to die cut one piece of this in white cardstock. And I'm going to be using this piece to make the inline frame and and cut out the panel. Now, if you know me, you know I'm not good at measuring things. So the panel is a little bit smaller than it should be, but we're gonna be arranging this in some ways. Don't worry. I have die cut the panel. It is not perfect. As you know, my panel was a little bit shorter than I actually needed. But this is going to fit anyways. You know, the white background that we're going to use will help us hide it. Now that we have our panel cut in some ways, we need to heat emboss it. I had this beautiful watery effect on the shades, and I obtained that by heat embossing. I'm using the wall embossing pad. You need to use a slow drying ink pad to do this, and I recommend you might want to use a transparent one because we need this to be transparent in the end. We're using this ultra thick Ranger embossing powder, which is a very peculiar version of the clear embossing powder. You could use the regular embossing powder that we have, the clear one. This one has larger bits, and the way it melts makes the difference when you want to obtain such an effect as watery. It might look like rain if you place it on a building. It might look like water droplets on a flower, for example. In our case, this will be like watery waves effect. So I'm just simply placing the stencil down so that I match the shades. This will probably take me a while. It should be it. Probably not. So let me figure out. This is no. Here it is. Took me a while, but here we are. I'm placing it down so that I can place my my ink just on the colored part because I don't want the powder to go on the white spots. They have to stay clean. So next thing I do is just push it on my colors. It doesn't have to be perfect. The less perfect, actually, the better. Believe me, you will see. Now I think I have enough ink on this. Yes, you see how not regular it is? This will be enough to capture the powder. So next thing I'm doing, I'm using a regular printer sheet just to collect the powder afterwards. I'm using some of this. Don't be afraid to use this. We're going to collect all that we don't need to emboss. See? It's not perfect, and the grain is very large, and this will give us the beautiful watery effect that I am looking for. This is my heat gun. In English, this is called heat gun because it's a gun that triggers the heat. So this will melt the powder and give us the beautiful embossed effect that we're looking for. So I'm taking away the grip mat and I will be working on this. Beware, you might not want to place your hands in between. The power and the heat that this tool produces is very high. You are not going to be able to use a hair dryer for this because the temperature it reaches is much, much higher. So be careful and let's heat emboss it. I just finished heat embossing. Can you see the drop of water effect? Droplets of water on waves, I know, but this just looks good for such a background, I believe. You see, this one here has not been so well covered in ink, but I will leave it like this. If I wanted to have a more intense look of the watery effect, I would just simply have to replace the stencil on this, place some more ink, and then just pour some more of the embossing powder, and then repeat the heat embossing process, you know. But I will be just happy with this one like it is, and I will just have to cut the frame at the moment. So I am using the very same panel die that we used to cut the inside to cut the frame from this beautiful matte foiled cardstock. This is matte, meaning this is not mirror. When it's shiny and you can almost, see yourself in the reflection, that is called mirror cardstock. This is matte cardstock or opaque. Basically, you will find it on stores and in YouTube videos or any videos as matte cardstock. So I have cut out the frame, and I also have cut out one die cut of the base panel. So I have got all of my layers already. So basically the card is starting to take shape. We can proceed with gluing this to the panel. And I would recommend, actually, if you're not me and you don't want to waste so much of your double-sided adhesive sheet, you might want to use some adhesive. This is double-sided and it's just adhesive, meaning that you can use it to adhere any panels or any intricate die to your designs, and it will make your life much easier. Except if you're running it on very, very small details, then it's probably going to be a little bit difficult. But in this case, it would have been really helpful. I just didn't want to waste this whole portion of double-sided adhesive for this, so I will stick it with glue. But if you're brave enough, use double-sided adhesive sheets. I'm using this glue to gently glue it down, and I will be placing the panel inside of this later because this frame is much easier to center than the panel. I'm afraid I would not be able to center it well if I did the opposite. So I'm placing it down, and it's not straight, and it's not even centered, but that's me. No surprise. So that should be good enough for me to place this one inside of the frame now. I place glue on the back of it, and I am just, placing it down, which is not the correct verse. Let me find it. Okay. Not yet. Why isn't this? Okay. This is not matching well because this side is not really well cut. This is the shorter side. So we're going to have to mask it. If you know me, I usually correct my mistakes by masking them in some ways. No big worries. What we need to do next is to die cut all of the pieces of the flowers. This flower belongs to our 2025 flower collection by our monthly release. And this is going to be die cut all in white, and we're going to be coloring this using some distress inks. Very simple, very quick, very nice. Now you see I have die cut all of the pieces of the flower. We have the petals and the leaves, and we have the centers here. Now, if you're wondering why this piece is still stuck into the paper that I die cut it in, it's because this piece is really small and I want it to dye it black. I'm not going to blend it. I will just use the ink pad like this. I will just cover this with color using the ink pad, and you will see this will leave the die cut piece with a little white border, which I think really looks nice. So I experimented that the other day and I really liked the results. So here it is again. I will clean this later. Now, I took out a couple of colors and we're going to ink blend all of the pieces of the flower. I will be leaving some white and just add dimension and depth with the color in the center of the die cut. You will see this is a really simple technique. It will take literally no time to you and the result is beautiful. You know, I'm not able to color like anything, not in the lines, not outside the lines. I cannot color, but ink blending really helps me out to obtain these beautiful results in just no time and with no skills required. You will just need a couple of blending tools. I will be using this one to apply some crackling campfire, which is a red that kind of shades into orange or the opposite, depending on what you see first. I see the red first, but it has some bit of orange in it. So I will just pick some of the color and start from the center of my flower. And I will apply that with a really firm stroke. So I really want the color to pop out, you see? Here it is. I will do the same here. So very firm, very strong, and we will be coloring the center of the flower. I will not color the whole flower, but I will still, drag some color to the borders so that we will not see a border line where I stopped coloring. So here it is. After this, I will just add a little bit more interest, add in some candied apple. This is a really Christmassy red color. This is the red that I use when I want a Christmas color to pop out. And this is really bright. I will be using the same brush. Grab some color and do this. Circular motion, firm, but a little bit more delicate than before. So you'll see how the two colors blend in beautifully. You will basically repeat the same process twice, but the overlaying of the color really brings out such great shades, which I think are kind of perfect for this flower. We are going to need to color this center here too, and I will do it very quickly like this. Now we have to work on the leaves, and I will be using the rustic wilderness color, which is really nice. This is a really Christmassy green too. The flower is not a Christmas flower though, but still, you know, very firm, very strong. These blending brushes, these are by the Essen. These bring out a really big amount of color on your die cut piece or on your stencil or whatever place you are applying the color onto, and they will let you blend. See what I want? I want a really firm and dark part of the leaves to be visible, and then I want the color to gently blend towards the point of the leaves. Same thing here. You know, I am a symmetrical designer of dies, so most of my dies, whenever possible, they have symmetrical leaves. Everybody has their own OCDs, so we can share. And that's it. And the flower is colored. No time, no skills, just beautiful. Now we're going to compose the flower with a little bit of glue. Here's my colored pieces here. I will just add a little drop of glue there and place these petals here, another bit of glue here, and I will use one of our precision pens to place the center here. And with another little droplet of glue, I will add this one here. Now, I will place the leaves only when I compose the flower bouquet, let's say, on the base of the card, because only then I will know how they fit. You know, compared to the one I made the other day, I was a little bit more insistent with the candied apple, which which made this a little bit more red, more reddish, let's say. This is more a little bit more orange kind of flower, and I was probably using another green here, but these two versions are still beautiful equally. Sorry. I'm trying to speak a little bit slower than I usually do, and I find it hard, but please forgive my mistakes. That's just because I'm trying to speak a lot more slowly than I would usually do. So let's go ahead and place a little foam tape. If you know me, I am a foam tape girl. So just a little bit of foam tape here, and I will place the flower. See? Now I can figure out where I want to position the leaves. You know, I love corners, and most of my compositions are made in a corner. So that's typically me. You can place it whatever makes makes sense for you. Maybe you like it more with the two leaves on the back, on the top of it. It's just up to you. There is no rule except that you have to like it. So if you like it, whatever is going to be fine. This is a card. We're not Derek Shepherd. If you know me, I'm a Grey's Anatomy girl too. So the composition is done. Okay, what I did with this card is to add a strip, a little sentiment, which was in my necessity box. You know, I'm a Harry Potter girl, you know. This was just a scrap sentiment that I had in my stash and that I had somehow, some time ago, I probably had printed and stamped and die cut it and did not use it. So these come in very, very handy when you're trying to finish a card. You can just open up this little box of wonder and see if there's anything you like. In my necessity box, you will find a lot of bats in various colors. That's another story. Let's see what, if I have another short strip, I need a small one because, you know, the card is not very large, so I don't want to cover the flower. And I might even consider a different arrangement. But let me see if I have a short strip. Crafty Friends. Crafty Friends can do. This is part of our latest banner strips release. And that's short enough and cute enough to be set on the card. So what I have to do next is decide if I want to have a matting on of the strip. You know, if I place this here over the flower, the contrast with the flower and the white paper that the strip is stamped on will be nice. So I think I can, you know, let it like that. I can leave it like this. I probably will not need an extra matting. There's enough contrast because the flower is very much darker than the original one, than the one I made the other day. So this will be good anyways. I think I'm not going to use a mat, but just in case, I would have die cut it from here because so it matches the color of the frame. You know, I'm a matchy color girl. Forgive me for that, but I really need to have not too many colors and possibly matching. So the contrast is fine. I will just probably need a little strip of foam tape. Told you I'm a foam tape girl. So here's a little piece of black foam tape. I placed it on the back of the strip and I will just place it here so that it pops out a little bit more and the card is finished. And it was basically only made from scratch. I used the stencil for the background, the wonderful new die set by La Copia Creativa to create the card, the wavy slimline and the background, and the flower. I bet you probably have lots of backgrounds in your stash and lots of flowers that you die cut, maybe assembled, and never used for a card. So this might be a nice idea. What do you think? So this is the card that we just made. And this is, you know, the original card I made during the live stream, I thought it would be a nice idea to replicate one of the projects that I had already made to start with my English content videos. These new videos in English are meant probably to help my customers and my community to improve their English. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if we're making more content like this. If you like the content, please let me know. Drop a comment, like the video, follow the channel if you still don't, if you still don't, and let us know what you think. I'm sorry if I probably stuttered a little bit. I'm trying to speak slower than usual, and it takes a lot of effort. I will get better, I promise. Just let me know what you think of the content of the video and if you would like to see more of this in English. And this video will probably reach non-Italian viewers anyway. So please, if you are new to my channel, drop me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from and let me know if you liked the small card that we made. So thanks for being here and see you next time.